Smoke rolled through the streets of Alexandria as terrified scribes carried armfuls of scrolls through collapsing corridors lit by fire. Somewhere inside the largest collection of knowledge on Earth, thousands of years of science, philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, and history were disappearing forever. And the most haunting part of the story is that nobody knows exactly how much humanity lost. For centuries, the Library of Alexandria has existed almost like a myth. Some imagine it as the greatest intellectual center ever built. Others see it as a symbol of civilization's fragility, proof that knowledge itself can vanish when empires collapse. But behind the legends was a very real place built during one of history's most extraordinary eras. The story begins after the death of Alexander the Great in 323 BC. His empire fractured almost immediately as his generals fought for control across the ancient world. In Egypt, one of those generals, Ptolemy I, seized power and founded the Ptolemaic dynasty. He transformed Alexandria, a coastal city founded by Alexander himself, into the new intellectual capital of the Mediterranean. This was not just a city of armies and trade routes. It was designed to become a machine for collecting human knowledge. At the center of that ambition stood the Great Library. The library was likely connected to a larger research institution called the Mausion, or Temple of the Muses. Together, they attracted scholars, mathematicians, engineers, physicians, poets, and philosophers from across the known world. Ships arriving in Alexandria's harbor were reportedly searched for books and manuscripts. Any text discovered could be copied by scribes, with the originals sometimes kept for the library itself. The goal was astonishingly ambitious. The Ptolemies wanted to gather every piece of human knowledge they could find: Greek dramas, Egyptian religious texts, Babylonian astronomy records, Persian historical accounts, mathematical treatises, medical theories, maps, poetry, philosophy, scientific observations. At its height, ancient sources claimed the library may have contained hundreds of thousands of scrolls, though the exact number remains debated. But what made Alexandria truly revolutionary was not simply collecting information. It was creating an environment where knowledge could evolve. Inside the city, scholars compared texts from different civilizations, debated theories, translated foreign languages, and attempted to organize the entire intellectual world into categories humans could understand. Some of history's greatest thinkers worked there. Euclid developed foundational geometry. Eratosthenes calculated the circumference of the Earth with astonishing accuracy using shadows and mathematics. Physicians dissected human bodies to study anatomy in ways rarely attempted before. In many ways, Alexandria resembled an ancient version of a modern research university mixed with a global archive, and it existed more than 2,000 years ago. The city itself became one of the wealthiest and most cosmopolitan places on Earth. Massive ships crowded the harbor beneath the towering Pharos lighthouse, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Merchants, scholars, priests, sailors, diplomats, and travelers filled markets lined with marble columns and enormous statues. Different languages echoed through the streets, cultures mixed constantly. Knowledge flowed alongside trade, but Alexandria's greatest strength also made it vulnerable. The library depended entirely on political stability and imperial wealth, and the ancient world was rarely stable for long. The first major disaster may have arrived during Julius Caesar's campaign in Egypt in 48 BC, as Caesar fought for control during a civil war involving Cleopatra and her brother Ptolemy III. Fires spread near Alexandria's harbor. Ancient writers later suggested that parts of the city, and possibly portions of the library's collections, were damaged during the chaos. The details remain heavily debated. Some historians believe the main library survived. Others argue that large sections of its archives may already have been destroyed. But one thing is clear: the library's decline was not a single dramatic moment. It was likely a slow process, stretched across centuries. That is what makes the story even more tragic. Humanity did not necessarily lose its greatest collection of knowledge in one night of flames. It may have disappeared piece by piece, generation after generation, through war, neglect, political collapse, religious conflict, and economic decline. As Roman power expanded across the Mediterranean, Alexandria changed. Emperors rose and fell, civil wars erupted, Funding for intellectual institutions weakened. Different rulers valued scholarship differently. Some supported learning, others viewed certain philosophies and texts as dangerous. Then came another turning point. In the 3rd century AD, Emperor Aurelian fought to retake Alexandria during a rebellion against Rome. Large sections of the city were devastated during the conflict, including areas connected to the royal quarter where scholars once worked. Whatever survived earlier disasters may have suffered further destruction during the fighting. But the story still did not end there. By the 4th century, Christianity had become increasingly dominant across the Roman Empire. Religious tensions intensified as pagan institutions lost protection and influence. In 391 AD, the Serapeum, a temple complex often associated with a secondary collection connected to the library, was destroyed during violent religious conflict following imperial decrees against pagan worship. Ancient statues were smashed, temples were dismantled, scrolls may have vanished again. And still, historians argue over what exactly remained by this point. That uncertainty became part of the library's legend. Because the less humanity knew about its destruction, the more symbolic the story became. Alexandria transformed into something larger than a building. It became the ultimate what if. What discoveries disappeared inside those lost scrolls? Some theories are exaggerated wildly by modern imagination. There is no evidence the library contained futuristic machines or magical technologies far beyond its time. But the loss was still enormous. Ancient science and philosophy advanced through fragile handwritten copies. If texts were not continuously copied and preserved, they vanished forever. Entire plays by Greek dramatists disappeared. Histories vanished. Scientific theories were erased. Unknown inventions may have been forgotten. Countless perspectives from ancient civilizations were simply lost to time because the physical materials carrying them were destroyed. And in the ancient world, destruction happened constantly. Scrolls decayed. Fires spread. Armies looted cities. Libraries required immense resources to maintain. Knowledge was never guaranteed to survive. The Library of Alexandria reminds us of something deeply uncomfortable about civilization itself. Human progress is fragile. Modern societies often assume knowledge naturally accumulates over time. But history shows that entire systems can collapse. Languages can disappear. Scientific understanding can regress. Cultural memory can fracture. Even powerful empires can lose access to ideas they once possessed. There are examples throughout history. The collapse of Bronze Age civilizations disrupted trade and writing systems across the Eastern Mediterranean. Roman engineering knowledge weakened after the fall of the Western Empire. Ancient medical practices disappeared for centuries. In many cases, humanity had to rediscover knowledge it once already understood. And Alexandria became the ultimate symbol of that danger. Over time, myths surrounding the library grew larger and more dramatic. Some claimed it held secrets intentionally hidden from humanity. Others imagined forbidden knowledge erased by conquerors and religious authorities. Conspiracy theories flourished because people are naturally fascinated by lost wisdom. Every missing scroll creates room for imagination, but the real story may be powerful enough on its own. A civilization gathered the intellectual achievements of multiple cultures into one city and attempted something almost impossible, preserving the total memory of the ancient world. For centuries, it succeeded brilliantly. Then politics, war, instability, and time slowly dismantled it. And the tragedy is not only what humanity lost, it is that the people living through those events probably never fully realized how much was disappearing around them. A burned scroll may have looked insignificant during a riot or invasion. A neglected archive may have seemed unimportant during economic collapse, but across generations, small losses accumulate into enormous historical silence. Today, the Library of Alexandria still captures imaginations because it represents both the height of human curiosity and the terrifying vulnerability of knowledge itself. It reminds us that civilization is not permanent. Preservation is not automatic. Memory can vanish, and somewhere inside the smoke and chaos of ancient Alexandria, humanity may have lost pieces of its own story that it will never recover again.